Let's go! LSU, Mississippi State. I feel like this actually is the game of the weekend, even though you have some other good ones, Penn State and Auburn. Obviously, I think the one that'll have the most eyeballs is Texas A&M going up against Miami, but this is just your classic SEC West matchup where LSU, quite frankly, has dominated this series. Now, as a lot of you have pointed out this week, Mississippi State fans and LSU fans, the road team has won the last two matchups. But today we're going to talk about a few things here. Now, first things first, this has just been an amazing week for not only this channel, but Power Hour SEC. I really do appreciate all the love there. I actually think the juiciest matchup is actually this right here. The great Bobby Petrino returning home to Fayetteville with Jordan Jones in tow, the former Razorback wide receiver. A nice little homecoming there, and obviously, arguably the biggest coaching scandal in the past decade in the SEC. So that is going to be very, very interesting. I'll give you some thoughts on that game here at the end, but I do want to focus mostly on, to me, the biggest SEC versus SEC matchup here. Let's start off with, to me, obviously the stud of this game is obviously the quarterback battle between Will Rogers and Jaden Daniels, two of the best SEC quarterbacks up to this point in the season. Now, of course, Will Rogers, you saw at the beginning, get sacked. That was kind of a prevent situation, but, for the most part, he was rattled because LSU decided to rush 3 and drop 8. It's going to be interesting to see if LSU defensively is going to do that. Brian Kelly said that is not what they plan on doing, which can be very dangerous. I think that probably is the best way to stop the quick passing attack. And keep in mind, Mississippi State's passing attack isn't really all that explosive. They only had one play of 20 yards or more last week, I believe, against Arizona. And just historically, Will Rogers is not really a big A-dot thrower. He's not a deep ball thrower. He is a quick passing game, traditional air raid, dink here, dink there, mesh thrower of the football. So it's going to be interesting to see what LSU tries to do defensively, and it's going to be interesting to see if Mississippi State decides to run the football, as LSU's tackling up to this point in the year hasn't really been all that great. But what I want to get to here is actually one very interesting stat from SEC StatCat. The first is LSU actually leads the SEC in broken play percentage, right? Plays that go off script. And that makes a lot of sense because Jaden overall is an improviser. But I think the more interesting stat is that LSU is amongst the SEC's lowest when it comes to RPO percentage. And what's really fascinating about that is actually two things. The first is that, Mike Denbrock, the play caller, the offensive coordinator for LSU, has multiple lectures on how to run good RPOs that you could go watch on YouTube right now. I don't know if they're still up. It's like CoachTube stuff. Sometimes it gets taken down. But the second thing is a big part of LSU's success versus Mississippi State was exactly the RPO. And this is where, this video has a little extra nugget mixed in there. What you just saw was an RPO touchdown for Max Johnson to KAYSHON. Now, of course, Max is getting a big start this weekend for Texas A&M. We'll talk about him in just a second. But KAYSHON was the main reason why LSU won this game last year, along with their patient defensive game plan. LSU ran 88 defensive plays compared to only 54 offensive plays, and a big reason why was KAYSHON's ability to score on explosive plays. So right here, the safety, after that first run you saw coming out of the third quarter, the safety is crashing down because LSU had a good run to the left side. Okay? Corner has inside leverage, and watch, KAYSHON is still able to get inside of him. Pause. And you get that? Pause the video and pause. But still, Max throws a dart. It is straight man-to-man coverage with no safety help over the top, and the RPO was a big part of what LSU was able to do. And while they didn't run the football, they did have a lot of success with counter, where you pull sometimes one, but more often two guys to the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. And as you saw, the first play and the second play were actually the same play. It's just this time Max decided to pull it and throw it. And what's funny is the RPO percentage for LSU actually was even lower versus Florida State. So how much RPO will LSU do versus Mississippi State is going to be very interesting. And just overall, what will this LSU offensive line do versus a Mississippi State defense that I feel is actually really, really, really good? Now, I won't get into this because you have heard it on the PHL podcast, and we did an entire 15-minute video dedicated to this one massive stat that is working against Mississippi State. If you want to see that video, it is on my Power Hour LSU channel. And guess what? You can find it by clicking the link in the top right corner of your screen. It's going to be interesting to see how much Mississippi State runs the football offensively because LSU has not been the best tackling defense. And one big thing for Mississippi State, if they are to win this game, you just got to catch the daggum football. They had some really bad drops, and those drops actually turned into some really ugly mistakes for Mississippi State last year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Mississippi State adjusts to LSU, the nighttime game in Death Valley. But once again, if you want to see my main reason as to why I think Mississippi State could potentially lay an egg in this matchup, it is in the top right corner of your screen. I'll also link it down below. So, for me, my pick in this one, you're telling me LSU at home with points. You know, I feel like if you're just looking at the rosters and the performance and the experience and the continuity that Mississippi State has, I feel like Mississippi State is probably the slightly better team up to this point of the year. But they no longer have Mekhi Polk, who you see in the background, number 10, who I felt was their best receiver. So I do think LSU finds a way to get it done, and they play their best game of the season. Give me the Tigers 31-20. I could also see that score being a little bit higher and the over clearing. I think on my podcast I gave 34-20. But I could see LSU jumping out to a quick start and finding a way to get it done. But the one thing I'll say about Mississippi State is they are the absolute best at coming back in the SEC. They had two massive comebacks last year that were pretty crazy, and one of those was on the back end of a back-to-back road game, which is where Mississippi State is now. And that guy is back for Mississippi State, Austin Williams, roommate of Will Rogers. So very interesting. Both teams also have shaky special teams situations. LSU had a rough special teams game versus Florida State, and last week Mississippi State had a rough special teams game, missing 2 extra points. Be on the lookout, though. Xavier Thomas, I really liked him coming out of Louisiana. Mississippi State got themselves a good football player. Had a really good game last week returning punts. So, obviously I've spent a lot of time looking at this matchup, but I'm still going to go LSU. I will say this, though. LSU fans are nervous about this. They really, really are. They have no idea what to expect, after the blowout last week versus an FCS team in Southern, and obviously the overall top-to-bottom rough, patchy performance versus Florida State. Whereas Mississippi State has had not one but two really impressive performances, blowing out Memphis and finding a way to get it done versus a very much improved Arizona team. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I want to shout out one of our many PHL patrons, Michael, making the trip from Colorado to Baton Rouge this weekend. I'm always excited when I get to see people that don't live near Louisiana get the opportunity to go back home or just go support their LSU Tigers. Obviously, coverage responsibilities are going to be so key. But honestly, for me, there's just so many factors in this game, right? Including this one. Like, I do feel LSU caught the lucky breaks. Like, Will Rogers did miss a touchdown pass earlier in this half, I believe. And right here where two defensive backs run into each other, Cole Taylor scored a touchdown when we had a bad protection mistake right there. But good job by TDP saving the day. we caught some breaks, right? So hopefully the breaks go our way in Tiger Stadium as well. So comment down below your score predictions. Don't forget pregame, halftime, and postgame shows over the weekend. And obviously, this is the most important thing. Please go support in the Patreon, right? I feel as if you're missing out on our Discord chats where you get to see some of my other picks and things that we discuss in there. And obviously, if that is not in your heart's desire, we obviously have the PHL podcast that you could check out. We have Power Hour SEC. We got a lot of stuff. So once again, thank you guys for rocking with me, supporting me. It's been so much fun, okay? And hopefully we get the breakout SEC performance. So let me know what you guys think down below. So if you want to see all my research on back-to-back road games and why I think that's going to be a big key for LSU in this matchup going up against what could be a sluggish Mississippi State team, that video will be floating in your face in just a second, okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Bam! I don't know why. I'm just feeling, even though you guys have, if you've been watching our live streams normally, you know, I've been very shaky about this LSU roster. Obviously, this is the first year of a rebuild under Brian Kelly. And yeah, but for some reason, I don't know if it may be just the fan in me. I guess I just feel very optimistic for whatever the reason may be. I kind of like this feeling. Tonight, though, oh, how about some elote street corn, baby? Let's go.